Hello, my name is Marcel from the Broek, and you may know me as a former president of the ICPS. Today, on this World Carnivorous Plant Day, I want to talk to you about cultivars. Well, you have seen cultivars, you use their names, and you may know that a cultivar name is written, that is registered, is written between single quote signs, and fantasy names shouldn't be used. But if you do, put double quote signs on them. You may also note that to get registered, you have to go to the ICPS because the ICPS is the only authority that can actually register a cultivar. As such, it's appointed by the International Society for Horticultural Science, and that means that we have to obey by their rules. Well, as I said, there are a lot of things to know about cultivars, but here are five things you may not know about them. For one, a cultivar is not a quality stamp. If you register a cultivar, it needs to meet some international demands. That is has nothing to do with how good it is, how beautiful it is, how large it is. That's all not the issue. To meet the standard, it has to have a proper name, it has to have a good description of the plant, and it need to be effectively published. That means you have to publish the description and a good picture of it in a book or a journal or that sort of thing. When you submit that to the ICPS, we check the facts and then we will publish it. There is no quality control on that. We are not allowed to do that. If you don't have a place to publish that, we can publish it for you. Our CPN journal is actually considered an effective means of publication. It's an official journal, so that would work. But yeah, so if you meet the demands, you can actually register just about any plant. Mind you, there are some traps with that, but I'll get to that later. Um, Number two, a cultivar is not a protected status. It's not like a patent or breeding rights in which a nursery can or other breeder can put like rights on the cultivar on the plant so that you can't propagate it without paying them, and that way they can get money back from their investments of many years of selection and crossbreeding and that sort of thing. Cultivar name doesn't do that. I mean, a cultivar you can propagate to your heart's content. Um, Number three, why you should make a pretty good description. You can, as I said, there are some traps with the description. Um, well, people are not always that good in describing species of plants and how they look like as a cultivar. And they also don't always select really outstanding plants. So they just put in a description. Well, that's fine, but a sloppy description has a big drawback. And that drawback is that for the international rules, a plant is considered to be the cultivar if it looks and matches the description. That means that any offspring of a plant that looks like, even if it's brought done by seed or crossbred with another plant, if it looks like if it matches the description of the cultivar, for the rules, it's considered to be the cultivar. That's difficult. For instance, if you have a plant which only criteria is that it's a red plant, you are in true trouble because basically every red plant of that species would be the cultivar. And think about it like if it looks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Um, so that's a big issue if you don't give a pretty good description. And you could also imagine the fun we have when someone puts in a rather sloppy description and adds to that, like to maintain the character. you need to propagate it vegetatively. Well, basically, that's not the case. I mean, if seeds from that plant look like the cultivar, you can still sell them as the cultivar. It's not proper etiquette. If a plant is selved, it's good to say it to market like cross selved, but technically you can consider it a cultivar. So then a fourth thing, I gave the example of a completely red plant as the only characteristic. Now, you should never use color only as a distinctive feature, and that's often a problem. And the most important problems with that is that, like, color it depends on growing conditions like size, the light, the amount of light, the amount of feeding. That also all influence the color. Also, if you have herbarium specimens to look at and it's not high quality material, it's sometimes difficult to determine the exact color. So if you only use color, there is room for interpretation in that. And that means you can wind up with a lot of unintended plants included in your cultivar description. The fifth point and last point where I want to talk about why you should add a diagnosis to your description. For CPN, we demand that you give a diagnostic uh, point into the description. That means you look at similar cultivars and say, okay, my cultivar is different from that one in these points. That avoids problems like, okay, but it's the same thing, it looks the same. And remember, if you have like notorious ones like Dionia and Sarracenia morai hybrids, um, they are very, very similar often, and it's very difficult to tell. You need a good description and that comparison with other description. You can get angry like, oh, but you can see that and you can see that. But basically, the rule is if you can't describe the difference, you have to presume that others can't tell the difference. So it's good to have a very good analysis and a diagnosis of what is actually species. So I hope this helps you with a new cultivar description. On the ICPS website is a forum where you can register your plants. And Jan, our great authority on the cultivar registrations, will be happy to look at it and see if it matches the requirements. So I hope you have a very great day with a lot of nice short talks like this one. And see you next time, maybe on a conference. Goodbye.